What is up, everybody? Kazdan is on here from Kraz Productions with another Atari-based video for you guys, but this time we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. Obviously, my channel is heavily focused on things like Tokusatsu, Power Rangers, and Atari VCS, but today we're going to be talking about Atari Jaguar and Atari Jaguar Homebrew. Now, I do have to go ahead and say from the beginning that I am going on the offensive with this. This is kind of like honestly a weird video for me. So essentially somebody has come to me and has requested to remain anonymous, and as such I should respect that. But the context of this video is that they essentially have given me a ROM of a game that is currently being worked on and has asked me to review it. Now, again, I have to say that I'm going on the offensive with this because there's a few things with it that I found to be kind of a big problem, and I hope that whoever's watching this, whoever sent me this ROM, will take what I say to heart and hopefully change this. But this is not an entirely negative video. This is actually something that I think the Atari Jaguar community will actually enjoy, and might even look forward to once it becomes a final product. But I have to also go ahead and say that I'm in no way whatsoever the authoritative opinion over what a homebrew is supposed to be or what is supposed to be done in a homebrew. What we are, of course, talking about is Frogger for the Atari Jaguar. Now, I didn't know going into this what this actually was. I had heard rumors that somebody was working on a Frogger game, but I didn't know like the full context and the controversy that had followed it. So now here I am, I've agreed to review this game, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be naive about it. I'm going to confront the things that I have a problem with, and also point out some of the positives in hopes that somebody will learn from this. So what we are talking about specifically happens to be a port of the Super Nintendo version of Frogger that was released in 1998 by Majesco Cells, and is essentially being reconfigured and sent over to the Atari Jaguar as a homebrew game. And this, of course, is being sold, so you are able to purchase a physical copy. But I have some things that really bother me about this. And before we start looking at the video, I want to go ahead and say that if you are developing a video game of any sort, whether it be homebrew, an official license, or whatever, you need to credit people when you use their things. You need to credit people when you do your things. So, let's go ahead and get into this. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I have some positive opinions. We're going to talk about that. But we're going to address the negative first. So, when you first boot up the game, essentially you're greeted by jock jams from Space Jam. So I've had to mute the music because the individual using this music does not own the rights to the song. In fact, I would get a huge copyright strike from YouTube if I decided to use it. And so far, my YouTube has been fairly clean over the 2 years of me using it. So I don't want to risk that. So I decided to mute the music and still play through what we currently have. So I'm leaving all the sound effects and stuff like that. But we have this beautiful 16-bit graphic that you could only get on the Super Nintendo, and it's also being brought over to the Atari Jaguar, and it's honestly not bad. It's visually appealing. I like it. I think that as far as playability goes, now, first off, I should clarify that I didn't grow up playing Frogger. I'm very familiar with the Sega Genesis version, and I think that as far as the arcade port goes, they did a very good job. And I haven't had an experience that has captured Frogger like it has for me on the Sega Genesis. So I'm not the authoritative opinion on this either. But for my assessment, and by comparison, I have to acknowledge that this version of Frogger is not really on par with that of the Super Nintendo, but it's also not bad. So, controls are very good. I do think that there's some problems with hit detection. I think that needs to be worked on a little bit. And it definitely gives you a sense of difficulty that makes the game itself feel challenging. But it's missing a few assets that the Nintendo version had, which is maybe like the scores, the timers. Certain sound effects are slightly modified, and you'll also notice here for the Atari Jaguar version that there's also now music in the background, which is also kind of cool. So now we have this 16-bit Frogger version that has background music and has kind of a modernized feel to it. But I think that when you're developing for the Atari Jaguar, you're dealing with essentially a clunky controller, and maybe that might feel completely different during development stages as compared to that of the Super Nintendo controller. We have to admit that the Super Nintendo controller is not just a classic, it is also an impressive piece of hardware comparative to most controllers. And Nintendo did it right. Atari didn't do very well with the Jaguar controller. And so sometimes the buttons may feel stiff and so on, so that might mean that how it feels on a modern controller through emulation may not translate well to how it would feel on actual Atari Jaguar hardware. But in comparison, I think that it holds up. I think that it definitely needs to be refined a little bit more, but I was constantly trying to basically unalive myself in the game because I wanted to see if I could make it crash. Ultimately, when you're testing out a game, that's the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out if there's any bugs. So try to make it crash is exactly what I tried to do. And surprisingly, no crashes at all. So I don't know all of what has gone into trying to get this to function on the Atari Jaguar. But whatever they've done well. But one of my other gripes is that when you die, you get greeted by this alligator. And the thing that bothers me the most about this alligator is not the fact that it's an alligator or that the art style doesn't match the art style that's advertised on the front. What bothers me is I'm actually very familiar with this artwork. I'm very familiar with who makes this artwork. I've spent a lot of time scrolling through Shutterstock, and for things like this, you are supposed to purchase a license for them, or at least credit the individual who owns them. That was not done. The person who made this artwork is Christos Georgiou, and he has been making stuff like this for the last 14 years. This is not a new piece of artwork. This has been out there for a while, but it has been, through my research, presented as an art piece that was made by the company that is basically hiring people to make this game. So that means that that person in question is saying that this is my artwork, I made this, and that's not true. I'm not okay with that, because again, I'm familiar with the person who does this art. I am no stranger to the art that he does. So seeing this was a bit of a surprise to me, and I have to call that out. Now, if maybe somewhere down the lines that, this advice is taken and a licensed agreement or some kind of receipt, or maybe his name is mentioned in credits or opening credits in a final product, I can let it slide. Otherwise, I can't endorse or tell you to go buy something that is blatantly stealing someone else's work. Do I think it's bad, the game itself? No, absolutely not. Whoever has programmed this has done a very good job, in my personal opinion. Not my professional opinion, but in my personal opinion, has done a very good job and needs to continue to do a good job. But ultimately, they need to fix these problems. Hit detection is a little bit off when it comes to trying to get to the barriers. You don't have this problem when you're playing the Super Nintendo version. I don't know what has changed. You need to get rid of the intro music. You need to get rid of the crocodile, or you need to credit the person who made the crocodile. And last but not least, just produce a good game. Have fun with it. Make sure that the criticism that you are getting from people through like Atari Age, and boy, the drama I found on Atari Age about this is insane. I didn't know about this going into it. But the criticism that you are getting, take it in stride. If somebody who has been in the Jaguar development scene is giving you advice on how to fix something, you gotta take it. You don't have to, but at least consider it. But I digress. My ultimate thing here is that I think this could be a really amazing product. I think that for retro collectors and Frogger fanatics who have wanted to see this on their Jaguar, I think it would be an instant sell, an instant hit. But not until you fix these things. Anyways, that's all my negative gripes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Kaz Denizan with Kraz Productions. I hope you enjoyed the video, or at least appreciated my input. If you have opinions about this, whether they're positive or negative, I will not censor the comments below. Please drop a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one.